Hey YouTube, welcome back. This is my second Kinetic Bolt video. My first video was kind of talking about a build that I found on PoE Ninja and that I wanted to explore and planned on playing. I ended up playing that build in SSF Hardcore. It's a small private league, but it's basically SSF. I played two variations of the build so far, but this video here is discussing the build, discussing support gems, play style, all those sorts of good things, and my experience with it so far. So, I did not expect to enjoy Kinetic Bolt. This is way more fun and less of a meme, better, more well-rounded than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think that playing a Wander in hardcore was going to be a good idea, but lo and behold, I would even recommend it to you. So that's where we are so far. First things first, this is not a fire dot slinger build. I've seen builds that try to scale flame wall, that try to scale the damage over time. We're not doing that. Some of these builds have flame wall in them. Some of them spell sling the flame wall, some of them self-cast the flame wall, but we're just using that for the flat damage that you get for projectiles traveling through flame wall. We are not scaling damage over time. I don't really like that build. I don't think it's that good, but back to this. So what is Kinetic Bolt if it's not a fire dot slinger build? We are playing this as a hit-based build. It's a ranged attack. We have a wand in one hand. Maybe we're dual wielding wands. Maybe we have a wand and a shield. It's kind of like a bow build. I don't like recommending crit elemental bow skills, or even just crit bow skills in general to new players when people ask me for recommendations. I just think there's too many places for it to go wrong. Like you don't have enough damage, you don't have enough attack speed, you don't have enough survivability, and there's just kind of pitfalls when a new player is looking to explore something like that. Instead of playing a build like that, I would recommend Kinetic Bolt. This has blown me out of the water with how easy it is to level, how easy it is to gear, how flexible it is. And it's a real build. I didn't think it was real. I thought it was kind of a meme, but I'm really into it at this point. So we get to use a shield, which means we can have life. We could have a Lionized Remorse with 200 flat life on it. We can scale block chance over cover life on block if we want to. We have access to elemental overload, so we don't need to rely on crit to scale our damage. We can do that much later on, but early on, during leveling or during early mapping, we can just be LA overload instead. We have access to Mind Over Matter, which bow builds normally don't have because it's right next to us on the skill tree, which gives us plenty of tankiness if we choose to opt into that. We can scale block, like I said before, with the shield. It has relevant defenses while you move through the gearing process, which really appealed to me playing this in a small hardcore private league. It's basically hardcore SSF at this point. From level 1, as soon as you walk into town, you get Kinetic Bolt. From level 4, you get Lesser Volley, which fires 2 additional projectiles on the side of you. And we can use pretty much whatever support gems we want. We can use Onslaught, added Lightning, added Cold, plenty of things like that. We could even use Chance to Bleed if we want to use like Fizz damage. But there's lots of ways to scale the damage very early on. And then any wand with like spell damage on it is going to help our damage. You get Kinetic Bolt at level 2 as soon as you walk into town. It's a level 1 gem. We get Volley as soon as we get to level 4. And then we can use basically any support gem. We could even use something like Chance to Bleed if we wanted to scale Fizz damage. But just something like Onslaught or Added Cold or Added Lighting, any of those gems tends to work very well. And then for wands, as long as our wand has good attack speed on it, any wand that has like maybe base 1.5 attack speed, something like an Imbued wand, even a Driftwood wand. But the slower wands, the ones that have like 1.2 base attack speed, I would just stay away from those. Just slow attack speed doesn't feel that good. I would just rather not use them. The reason that we're using Volley is that it shotguns with Kinetic Bolt. I can show you kind of what this looks like, and I'll give you some clips as well. As we attack, there's a sweet spot, maybe a character model or a character model and a half away from us, depending on how much prod speed you have in your build. Prod speed does come from quality on the gem, maybe you pick it up on the tree or something, but more on that later. So if I'm attacking Xana, for example, in my hideout, just about this distance should be my sweet spot. I think it's after the first fork in the Kinetic Bolt, after it like splits into 2 projectiles and changes distance. Something about right there. Let me turn off the Flame Wall Spell Slinger real quick, just so you can get a better visual of it. And again, I'll show you some clips of what this looks like, but right about right there, you'll see that as you're attacking an enemy, if they're right on top of you, your damage is going to be a little bit lower, but if they're just about that right distance away, you get like 4 or 5 times the damage. It's probably based on projectiles. I don't know exactly how much damage it deals. Honestly, that's one of the things that appeals to me about it, but it's plenty. If we have more projectile speed, the forking distance travels further away from us, which means that we get to stay farther away and be safer. So that's what prod speed does to us. So next up, Trinity. I think Trinity is a great way of scaling the damage. It gives us a reason to use added cold or added lightning or different kinds of damage on our gear. Maybe a bunch of lightning damage on our wand or a bunch of cold damage on our ring if we're crafting on like that. So how does Trinity work? When you have maximum resonance of all 3 elements, you deal 50% more elemental damage. And you also have 20% generic penetration that scales all 3 elements or whichever elements you have. So we don't need Flame Wall in order to activate Trinity. And to show that to you, I'm just going to turn this off, okay? So you're going to see like an Overwatch looking symbol that pops up on the left side of my screen. So as long as we deal 2 elements of damage, one being the highest at one point and one being the highest at a different point, we can have Trinity self-enabled without using a different skill. So you've probably seen builds like this already, but we're going to talk about it for just a second. I have added lightning on my gear, on my wand, and then I also have some cold damage on my gear. So you know that one of the defining characteristics of lightning damage is that sometimes it rolls 13, which is super low, and sometimes it rolls super high, 218, which is very, very high. Now, cold damage has a much narrower range, so 14 to 25. So what happens when I'm attacking is that sometimes the lightning damage rolls very small, and the cold damage is still right in the middle, which means that we're hitting cold and gaining resonance for fire and lightning. Sometimes the lightning damage rolls very high, which means that we're hitting lightning and gives us resonance for cold and fire. Even though we're not dealing fire damage, we're still gaining all the resonance that we need. And when I turn Flame Wall back on with my Spell Slinger, nothing is upset here. Everything is still just the same. So that's what Trinity looks like. I recommend Trinity. It's a great like 4th link for the gear. Maybe you want to level up with Onslaught in the gear. Maybe you want to level up with something else or just have more flat damage. But as soon as we get a ton of flat damage on our gear, we can use something like all of the more damage multipliers, like more damage from LE damage with attack skills, from greater volley, from inspiration, from Trinity. If we don't have enough flat damage on our gear, then you're going to see when you're looking at your own POBs, things like added cold damage or added lightning damage, or even awakened added cold or awakened added lightning. Those are going to skyrocket in terms of how much damage they give you in your DPS. So we'd like to have as much cold damage or as much flat damage on a gear, as much flat damage on Abyss Jewels as possible. But if we can't, we can still use, what do you call it? We can still use our gem sockets for that instead. Okay, next up, regarding flat damage and percent increase damage. We probably never have enough flat damage, and we probably always have enough increased damage. So here's one of the defining characteristics of Kinetic Bolt. Kinetic Bolt, as you can see on the screen here, it says, increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attack damage at 200% of their value. So anything that says 10% spell damage gives us 20% increased attack damage. So we probably always have enough percent increased damage. As you know, like if we have like 1,000% increased attack damage, getting 10% increase and moving it from 1,000% increase to 1,010% increase is not a substantial increase. So once we get enough increased damage, we want to worry about things like flat damage or attack speed or penetration or more damage or more damage or more damage, or even if you want to, you could have another more damage multiplier. So more damage, because those are multiplicative with each other, when you have more damage multipliers, you always want more of them because they stack. Increases are all lumped together in the damage formula for PoE. So there's diminishing return if we have too much percent increased damage on our character. So because we have starting nodes that look like this is 32% increased attack damage. This is 20% increased damage. This is 40% increased damage. We have both these nodes here, right? We have some 24% damage here and 40% increased attack damage here, right? All of these attack damage nodes, or all these spell damage nodes that become attack damage nodes, are very, very high. We even have the spell damage implicit on a weapon, 37% increased spell damage, which becomes, what, 74% increased damage. 74% increased attack damage on our wand, it's pretty good as a way of scaling damage. Because of that, when we have our golems into this build, we're actually not using Flame Golem, because Flame Golem is just percent increased damage, and we already have percent increased damage. We don't need any more of that. Speaking of percent increased damage, I just want to call this out real quick. The builds that I've been trying have been either Glancing Blows on Elementalist, because I can't really cap my block anyways, or on a Necromancer, not using Glancing Blows. But I'm trying to get a bunch of block chance because I'm using block chance to scale this. 5% spell damage per 5% chance to block attack damage. If you have 75% block chance, this is giving you 75 spell damage, which is giving you 150% increased damage. This node is quite good. It also happens to have ailment immunity on it, stun avoidance, it has some block chance on it. It is everything that we're looking for to scale offense and defense. So this is exactly the kind of thing that this build has, using a wand and a shield, that a bow build doesn't have. We get to scale offense and defense at the same time. We get to have a shield. We get to have life and block and stuff, as opposed to not. Poor bow builds. So one more thing to say about flat damage. If we have mana regeneration, if we're mind over matter, if we can sustain this kind of thing, Sigil Power is great. Sigil Power gives us flat elemental damage per stage. Let me see if I can hover over this real quick. It should be right here. So Sigil Power says adds 7 to 141 added lightning damage per stage, and then there's 4 stages on this. So this is a big amount of added lightning damage, assuming that we can stand in our Sigil Power and not take, not put ourselves in danger while we're doing this, but we can charge this up before a boss fight and then have a bunch of added lightning. So we can put things like increased area of effect, we can put increased duration on this to make it easier to use or last for a longer time, even though the base duration is 12 seconds. But Sigil Power, if you can maintain it, seems like a great place to be for a build like this. The next thing I want to say is about how SSF friendly this is. We have lots of possible annoyance and lots of possible essences that we can use. So when we're gearing up this character, when we're looking at, maybe a talisman that drops on the ground, we're looking for possible annoyance, maybe we're looking for different oils, or maybe we're hard up for exactly the oil that we need to get that right annoyance. There's lots of good options. Sure, maybe one option is 13% increased DPS and one is only 12% DPS, but there are tons of good options around the skill tree. We can anoint Prism Weave, or we can just path to it. We can grab Fuselage or Disintegration if we're going crit. We can grab things like these nodes down here, Command of the Elements, even attack speed, something like Art of the Gladiator. There are so many good options on the tree. When I was looking in POB for possible annoyance for my own character, there were like 1 or 2 that stood out as like the best, but there were maybe 10 great choices that were like 9% DPS increase or higher. And then regarding essences on a wand can give us % increased spell damage, which can be good for leveling. If we have a bunch of spell damage on a wand, maybe we want to use added cold, added lightning. If we have a bunch of flat damage on a wand, like from an Essence of Hatred, maybe that gives us like adds, 20 to 30 cold damage. Maybe we could use like Trinity, or we can use Wed, or we can use damage on a full life as one of our support gems, because it's a trade-off between like how much flat damage we have, how much increased damage we have, how much more damage multipliers we have. So it's a really flexible gearing process through and through. When we're making our wand, we can essence. We can look for like an Essence of Wrath for a bunch of flat lightning damage. Ideally, we'd want like, tier 1 added cold damage to attacks, tier 1 added lightning damage to attacks, attack speed. Just that would be an amazing wand for a build like this. So things like Reforge keeping prefixes, or Reforge with lightning, those kind of harvest crafts are really good for us as well. There's lots of good essences, things like attack speed, crit chance, added damage, even Essence of Woe for spell damage. And it means that as we're rolling these things, we can even fracture them in harvest. And, any of those that really hits is probably good enough for us. So making a good enough wand it takes some work, but it's really not that hard to do. The last thing that I wanted to mention was the ascendancy choices and what I've tried so far. So I'm going to pull up a POV real quick just to look at this. So this is a POV of the current character that I had after it died at level 91 in hardcore. So this was my ascendancy up here. We started out going all 4 points into golems. This is really the draw of why I was playing an elementalist. And then I grabbed Bastion of Elements. Not take reflected damage is pretty nice because it helps me run a bunch of map mods. And then it also gives me a 3,500 health shield against elemental damage. This synergizes well with things like Fizz taking a Zelly, or a Taste of Hate, or a helmet that says Fizz taking a Zelly, stuff like that. Or it just, helps to keep us safe. So it's fine. Shaper of Winter, I've seen some people go like this for Mastermind and Discord because it gives you more damage. But honestly, Shaper of Winter, if you are going to try the Elementalist version, I want you to try Shaper of Winter. This slows bosses down to a crawl, and they don't move, and their attacks are so slow, and it feels so safe. Shaper of Winter overperformed. I like this a lot. Everything that I've tried has been non-crit because, I've been playing in hardcore and I don't have access to particularly good gear. So we tried out this, which worked out pretty well, we're pathing through these two nodes just to get some extra golem life to make the golem survive more. And then I had Convocation on left click, Convocation because it gives them a 1.5% life regeneration buff, which means my golems are virtually never dying. The rest of this is pretty stock standard. We just have a bunch of block, a bunch of life, some mind over matter stuff, and some golem nodes at the top. I've seen some other people who've been going crit. I think that's fine, but I don't think that's really where I want to be personally, because I wanted to build these characters to be nice and tanky and be smooth for mapping, and I didn't want to give up the smoothness of mapping and the quality of life there just in order to have a little bit of extra damage. Really, for my characters, investing into crit was like coming all the way over here, and it's so far away. These nodes are the worst. But I think that's having some kind of pathing like this could be perfectly acceptable. Maybe something like this is interesting to you. Coming across the top, getting Prism Weave, coming for your Golem Commander, and you're getting your crit nodes here. Maybe you end up doing something like this. But something like that, without the investment into block, could be fine. I like the block because it scales the offense and defense at the same time, but I suppose it's not the only way to play the build. I've seen plenty of people come down here for this with Acro Phase Acro. I guess I need to try it out myself because I haven't done it personally, but like the Mind Over Matter version of the Elementalist that I played felt great. The Life/ES hybrid Necromancer that I'm going to show you in a moment also felt great. I haven't played the Acro Phase Acro stuff, but so far, I don't know, giving up this synergy for scaling your offense and your defense, I will regretfully try this out. But I do like this a lot, so let's leave it there. So that last build was the Elementalist that I took to 91. This is my new character in the same hardcore private league. This is a level 83 Necromancer that we're still working on. We're playing like a Life ES hybrid kind of thing. And then we're also using a Soul Tether in this build here. So that's one of the big differences. Our wand has a lot more flat elemental damage on it. We don't have Recover Life on block shield, but we are a Necromancer. So I've got a lot of questions coming from people in Twitch chat saying like, hey, why are you a Necromancer? Is this only for block chance, or are you also getting other things as well? So what we're getting, we have the block chance applies to us. So if we have Bone Offering up, 55-47 for our block chance and spell block chance. As soon as we get a Roomies, we'll be basically capped. So we have offerings apply to us for the block chance. We also have enemies deal reduced damage. We deal more damage because we're spell slinging Desecrate and we're spell slinging a Bone Offering. So we always have corpses around us. We have increased area of effect, which means that our Herald of Ice, which we're using, is nice and big. And then along with that, we have Corpse Pact, which gives us a bunch of attack speed. So as we're consuming corpses, because we're spell slinging something that consumes corpses, our Bone Offering is giving us attack speed, attack speed, attack speed, attack speed. So it kind of ramps up as we continue to stand in place and as we continue to consume corpses. We also get Chill and Shocked, which is great. We could use LE Focus, except I want to shatter things because I don't have an exploding chest piece right now. The last thing here is Essence Glutton. I considered going Commander of Darkness, but I just don't think the increased damage here is particularly good. As I noted before, one of the important things about being a Kinetic Bolt build is like you basically always have enough percent damage. So when you can get something that isn't percent damage instead, I think you'd rather just opt into that. So we're going for Essence Glutton. This is giving me lots of ES recharge, or not recharge, but ES regeneration per corpse that I consumed recently and for corpses that are nearby. So Essence Glutton is helping me stay super safe. I also have a tiny bit of attack damage leeches life, which along with the Soul Tether means that my ES is very effective at being another secondary health pool for me. So I only have 4.7k life right now, but we have another 1.2 energy shield. So we're about 6k life on this character right now. And initially, my character was going to come over here for Spiritual Aid. But again, this is all percent increase damage. And normally on a self-cast Necromancer, you see this kind of thing because not only does Spiritual Aid benefit from this wheel right here, maybe this node right there, and maybe you path through these nodes for damage instead of these two nodes there. And then you also get percent damage, percent damage, it's percent damage though. And just having those percent damage, percent increased damage in a Kinetic Bolt build, these nodes really aren't that good. They're maybe 2.7, maybe 2.8 damage per point. And I'd rather just get other nodes instead because I know that I need Elemental Focus for something like, you know, capping my my ailment immunity. Like chance to avoid ailments, chance to avoid ailments here. Like there's already nodes that I want to get that have percent increased damage on them, and I'd rather get those instead of getting this. One thing to note is if we get a Thread of Hope at some point, there's a great Thread of Hope that we can make use of. Maybe a Thread of Hope, maybe large, click, 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 click. let's go like this. And this would give us Spiritual Aid, Sovereignty, and maybe Sanctuary. And we could consider some different pathing to go like this. And this is something that that I would absolutely consider, given the possibility. So having some kind of pathing like this, maybe some AoE, maybe some mana stuff, but this would give us Sanctuary, all of our life nodes here. It would give us Spiritual Aid and Sovereignty. So we could have like another thing in our mana. Maybe we have like a leveled up Vitality or leveled up Clarity if we needed something along those lines. And then we could, I don't know, we could even consider coming down here for a more hardcore looking skill tree. Maybe we have left click Enduring Cry to have an endurance charge generation. Could be a thing. Or maybe we could come down here for Constitution if we wanted more life. Maybe we could spec into a large cluster jewel at that point because we're saving some extra points there. And we lose a little bit of block chance, but maybe we have a Roomies if we're planning on doing something like this later in the gearing process. Or maybe we have a chess piece that says increased effective offerings on us, which gives us better block chance because we're using an offering to give us block chance on ourselves for an offering. So there's a lot of cool ideas going on here. I think I would only take Spiritual Aid if I could maybe find a talisman that has an Anoint when I'm early on in a SSF League, or if I could Thread of Hope to it like this, something like that. So that about does it. Hopefully during this video, while I'm editing it, I can find a good place to slice in some footage and show you what the map clear looks like and show you what some of the Conquerors looked like. Hopefully you've already seen that at this point. But I have lots of other KB builds that I want to try out. I want to try a different Ivory Tower variation with a Necromancer. I want to spell sling some VD using Battle Mage on an Inquisitor. I've heard some people trying out Raider for the attack speed and defenses, or Pathfinder, or Deadeye, or Assassin with Poison. I like Kinetic Bolt a lot more than I thought I was going to. It is an appropriate a League Start build as a Wander, which is not something that I ever thought would happen. But like, there is a Wander playstyle out there that you can League Start in hardcore SSF and feel good about. Couldn't be happier. So I'm going to keep playing this. We have more stuff going on today. I'll be playing this build on stream. This is the Necro one that I'm currently working on. So that's twitch.tv/PayerThePig. If you want to come say hi and see what's going on there. I'll put links to Twitch and to my Discord, which is the best place to talk to me outside of normal streaming time. If you leave comments here on YouTube, I will do my best to respond to those as well, because that seems to be going swimmingly. Seems like it's going well so far. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And chat, I'll see you next time.